Welcome to the 2000 Cubit Rule. It is your host, Mark Rowan. Thanks for joining with us on another great episode. Excited to talk to has to be one of our top five guests. We'll get to reason why here in shortly. But I want to remind people why we are here. First of all, the 2000 Cubit Rule, it's all about making room for God to move in your business, your ministry, your life. And that's one of the core values of Sheep Feast. What we also do around here is help people with their technology. So if you're one of those folks that are building something and have a message from God and you want to amplify it better, we like to come alongside those, help them simplify that, not have so many different tools scattered all over the place, scattered across the farm maybe, and helps consolidate that and just walk alongside of you in getting your message out to the audience God's called you to. So if you need help with that, check us out. Find us at sheepfeast.com. Text us, email us, send up smoke signals, whatever works for you. We'd be glad to respond. All right. Now we're going to our guest. We're so excited today. The reason why he was one of our top five guests is his name is Rory Sheppard. And if you have a shepherd, he's got to be a favorite on Sheep Feast 2000 Cubit Rule. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. Well, I wanted to let people know who you are, where you come from. You're a senior executive leader and a business coach. You have more than 30 years of experience helping privately held businesses, family-owned companies, nonprofits, leadership teams. You bring clarity, structure, and disciplined execution to complex challenges. So your background involves roles with AT&T, HEB, Whataburger. Now we got to get some stories about Whataburger. And a lot of it you spent with those large, complex, family-owned businesses, and you developed practical understanding of growth, leadership, alignment, systems, succession, and long-term value creation. But today, Rory, as we're going to get into today, is you're helping those business owners and leaders simplify what seems complex, strengthen accountability, build organizations that can produce consistent and predictable results.
Yeah, it's
So
easy for you to say,
easy for
right?
me to say. So
Yeah.
that's a great background on kind of where you came from. But yeah, let's want to open it up to you, kind of your story of coming from that background of corporate, family owned, big kind of things to what you're doing today. How did that proceed?
Yeah, so the I would love to say I had a plan all the way along the way, but I think it was probably God's hand all the way along the way as opposed to mine. So those I did get blessed, right, to work on in and with some of the great companies in the state of Texas. Some of those you may not know if you're not in Texas, but HEB is a phenomenal grocery company. Whataburger has roots in Texas, but is now spreading nationally, even bigger now than it was when I left. But I was actually in a spot in 2021 where I'd been on the executive team at Whataburger for about 7 years. We'd gone through 12 months of struggles fighting through COVID. That included, on March 17th, we closed 750 corporate stores, in a day. Shut down the corporate office, sent 700 people home. And then March 18th, there were only 20 of us that showed up at the corporate office the next day. And we
Mm,
we went for a better part of a year with just a handful of people rattling around in a great big building, trying to keep the thing afloat. But after I got through that year, we were at a spot where my mom was 88 years old, still living on the family farm by herself. My in-laws had gone from being the caregivers for everybody in their church to probably needing a little bit more um, weekly care anyway. And so we were living in San Antonio, which is about 550 miles from Amarillo. So we got to a spot where we said it's time for us to move back up closer to home. So we made the move. I wasn't in a spot where I wanted to or needed to quit working. Really wanted to figure out a way to continue to do the stuff that I love to do. And so I started a coaching practice where I work mainly with small to medium businesses. So that could be anybody from a no kidding coal-fired blacksmith that the first time I met with him said, I got the coolest job in the world. I get to play with fire and hit stuff with a hammer. Um, to, kind of in that Fortune 1,000 Fortune 500 companies from an executive coaching perspective. Do a little bit of kind of fractional chief strategy work for large organizations. I spent pretty much my time at Whataburger was really kind of in that long-term corporate strategy. How are we going to expand? What are we going to do? Those kind of things. And so that's a comfortable place for me.
Mm.
But I do just love working with hardworking people that had a passion, had a dream, and said, I want to start a business. That entrepreneurial spirit kicked in and they created something, but they're great at being a blacksmith or a baker or a restaurant, restaurant owner, but maybe not a great business person, right?
Mm.
And so taking care of the financials, that vision, mission, purpose, how do we deliver? How do we do process improvement? I mean,
Mm.
those are all things that most of us, they don't come naturally to. And
Mm.
so having somebody that can come alongside you and help you out is that space for me. And then on the nonprofit side, I mean, I love nonprofits. About any given moment, 25-30% of my clients are nonprofits. So that's doing board work, looking at governance. I'm kicking off a new offering kind of as we speak around kind of board governance and kind of policy review.
Mm.
On the nonprofit side, we get people that I've got a nonprofit right now that started 15 years ago. The last time they touched their bylaws was 13 years ago.
Oh,
There's a lot of things that are still good in there, but their practices today don't align with what's in their bylaws. And
right.
so doing a practical review and update on that is another space to play. But then I love working with executive directors, nonprofit teams, boards. I think pretty much anywhere in the United States, but guaranteed here in the Texas Panhandle. I mean, we love our nonprofits. We love giving and donating to our nonprofits, but we want to make sure that every dollar we give gets used in the best possible way. And so um, I kind of feel that tug for me is to kind of help those nonprofits improve and
Right.
just get better at more efficient, more effective at using those dollars in the most effective way to help people in need.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, amazing. And before we go any further, we need to know about Whataburger because I know Whataburger because I used to live in the Florida Panhandle and so was able to partake of the goodness. But now living on the East Coast, it hasn't gotten that far yet. And
right?
depending on where you're from in the United States, it's like it's In and Out, it's Whataburger, it's Jack in the Box. And so, do you get in these kind of arguments when people find out that you're from Whataburger backgrounds?
Absolutely. And I generally just say I ate Whataburger at least 4 days a week for almost 7 years. So I'm always going to land in the Whataburger space. Now I will tell you that people look at me and go, "There's no way you did that. I mean, you don't weigh 400 pounds. There's no way you ate it 4 days a week." But they do have good. I mean, I ate a garden salad with grilled chicken. That was my standard order. It was great.
Yeah.
Um, I could have it delivered at 11, and if I ate at 11, good. If I didn't eat it till 1:30, that was good as well. But they had me stuck in a meeting somewhere, and so it
Mm.
was a lot easier just to have a standing order and eat Whataburger almost every day for lunch.
Did you guys have a kitchen there on site with the main office?
No, we had a store that was less than half a mile away,
Okay.
and so we would just and they produced a lot of food that got delivered to the corporate office on a
Yeah.
daily
Is
basis.
that part of your contract? Like you gotta.
I no no it wasn't. I did not think that was going to be part of what I did, but having me held captive was way easier than letting me off campus for an hour. So
Very
yeah,
good. Well, yeah, if for those that are watching and if you've never had Whataburger, you get a chance, definitely check it out. It's its own experience. It's like a lot of these places I've mentioned before, but yeah, it's been some time. It's probably been over 20 years since I've
so,
had one. So
so what's your, do you remember? Was it just a double meat or what was it that was your favorite? Do you have a memory?
uh I probably did partake of the double meat on more than one occasion. But yeah, I just remember the uniqueness of that particular sandwich, or
Yep.
people call it burger sandwich,
Yeah.
but yeah, because you grow up like the ones everyone knows, McDonald's and Wendy's and all those places, they have their own flavor too. But yeah, Whataburger definitely unique and
Absolutely.
how they do
Yeah.
theirs. So definitely try it out, folks. I don't think Rory gets any kickbacks anymore, other than maybe
Not anymore. No, sir.
401k or something like that that's still building. Uh, but no, kind of wanted to get a little bit of your faith journey as well. So
Sure.
we're part of the Christian Coaches Academy, and with Justin Nowski, we've had a few people that we've been able to talk to on our podcast from there. So that's exciting. So how did that kind of form in what you're doing and just your personal journey of your relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, so I'll start, and this is probably not completely unique to me, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm just crazy. But for years, I mean, I had a corporate life on a corporate calendar. I had a personal life, personal calendar, and then I had a church or faith life and faith calendar, right? And those three didn't, those are like, you know, your peas and potatoes on your plate, right? That just didn't touch, right? And I did decent. It kind of managed in all three of those kind of lives and differences, but it didn't take me long to figure out that I really was just only one person. And all three of those act and interact and are always together. And so part of that faith journey for me was just acknowledging that there's always a component in me that's the faith-based piece. There is always a component in me that's the corporate piece, or what are we doing to be more efficient, more effective? But then how do I manage my personal life? We're in a different space today. It's my wife and I at home. But, when my kids were growing up, it was, baseball, football, soccer, track, whatever the sport was. I was coaching. I made a stupid decision when my oldest son was 5, and I told him that whatever sport he wanted to play, I'd coach.
Mm.
And so that worked out pretty well until he was about his 6th grade year when he came home and said, "Next year I want to run cross country." And I said, "You need to think about that long and hard, because if you're running long distance, that means I have to run long distance." But
He had to think long and hard, or you had to think long.
well, I tried to talk him out of it, but
Uh,
I didn't win. So my wife and I now run still.
nice.
You know, 3 or 4 days a week. We're getting out and running, doing those kind of things. But on the faith-based side, my mom was made sure that we were at church anytime the doors were open. She taught Sunday school for over 60 years at our community church. About 50 of those, at least 50 of those years, was an adult Sunday school class that started off as young couples and ended up being the seniors group.
Nice.
But and so I kind of took that mantle on. I've taught Sunday school the better part of 4 decades. I don't think I'm at 4 decades yet, but getting close.
Nice.
So that's everything from using somebody else's curriculum to probably the last 15 or 20 years, 80 or 90% of what I teach, I write.
Mm.
And so it's a conversation with the class on what do y'all want to study next?
Mm.
And then throw my 2 bits in on something I want to learn. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the path that we've been down. Um, I love working with entrepreneurs that have strong faiths. Um, we'll talk about it probably sometime in here, but I created, I saw a need in me to have a daily practice around journaling and then kind of organization.
Mm.
I've been using it for years. Started introducing that to clients just as this might be something that would be helpful, right? I see you're struggling with some of the things that I struggle with.
Yeah.
This could be helpful to you. Probably 60 or 70% of my clients use my anchor points journal on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
just as it has a very strong faith component on one side of the daily page. Starts with gratitude and identity anchors, but then has a big section on prayer, um, starting with prayers that have been answered. I think
Yeah.
it's a that's probably the most consistent area of feedback I get is from people just saying, you forcing me to acknowledge that prayers do get answered is impactful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I think that, but breaking down that prayer section and then having a section around, scriptures I'm reading, meditation I'm doing right now, those kind of pieces. Again, a daily discipline, a daily routine, because I can tell those days when I don't do it. Um,
Mm.
I feel a little off. It's not quite as consistent or as good as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that that wasn't just an issue for me, but an issue that was pretty consistent with clients as well. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Now there's when you started out telling your story, I think it's something that a lot of people will process through, right? And hey, I love Jesus and but I also love business or whatever it is that they're called to do, right?
right,
And sometimes you get locked in on what you do from the 9 to 5 or whatever, and you don't necessarily think about how does my faith integrate in what I'm doing. So it's I mean, hey, it's easy for the guy that's a pastor or he's a
right,
teacher at a church or whatever. But I think that that's shifted a good bit, probably during, my lifetime, your lifetime, where more and more people understand that, you have a calling, Rory, and I have a calling. And even though we might have a Sunday school class, but, we don't teach Sunday school every day of the week,
right.
but it's just as important, right? And so you said you began to realize as you were going through, your life that hey, it's not just hey, I do this on the weekends or I, this and that and the other. It's like it's an integral part of who I am, who God created me to be. Was that just kind of a process of understanding? Was there any kind of aha moment for you, or how did you kind of come to that realization of a holistic, spiritual life and everything else you do?
I think it was probably, I mean, absolutely, it was a process. I think one of the huge benefits that I had was that those large family held corporations that I worked for still had a very strong connection back to faith. And so it wasn't ever in conflict for me to say my beliefs, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I when I was at HEB, I think the kind of the culture and kind of the unwritten rules around how do you act in a conference room, how do you talk, how do you carry yourself, even though it was not overtly faith based, there was absolutely strong undertones there.
Yeah.
When I was at Whataburger, unofficially, I guess I became the chief prayer, if that's a title that you could have.
Right. Yeah.
We started every large meeting, any kind of event, we started with prayer,
Yeah.
which I think is fantastic in corporate America today that you could still do that.
Yeah.
But and I kind of took on the mantle of, you know, I said the prayer a lot at a bunch of very large meetings just because that was a comfort zone for me.
Mm.
Kind of the dirty little secret was my prayer was always the Lord's Prayer. I just use different words, right? It's a great format.
Yeah.
It covers everything, but you can change the key words in there to be something completely different. But you've got a structure and a format to follow. So,
Yeah. No, that's a good little insight there for some people. There's all different levels of comfortability with prayer, right?
right,
You said you grew up in the church and all that, and even if people that grow up in the church, they may not be comfortable praying out loud. That seems to be one of these hurdles that people have to get over. I know when I went to a Christian school, and like from sixth to 12th grade, or seventh, I should say. But anyway, that was one of those things you would get called on in Bible class, and it could be nerve-wracking to try to think of prayer. But it's good to have those kind of rote prayers as well in your arsenal, even if
Yep.
you're maybe not an off the top of the head kind of person, but having that as a type of groundwork or how you pray is what Jesus said. This is how you pray.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. Just spend 5 minutes thinking about those key lines and what words would you change in here, right?
Yeah.
Super easy.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. So, from your background and the path that God led you on, it seems like you're clearly like a process, analytics kind of guy. That's how your mind obviously works to be able to do the things you do to help the organizations and business owners the way you do. Um, everybody has different giftings, right? Like uh, hey, and sometimes we look at somebody's gift as, oh man, I wish I could do that particular thing and whatnot. Was there ever anything like, kind of talk to us about like owning who you are, and did you ever have the temptation to be like, I wish I could do that, but then coming back around to like, you know what, this is good that I'm this way.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a little insight from my mother, which I think is it sounds a little harsh, but she meant it in the best possible way. But I would come home from a taking a big test or quarterly exam, something like that, and she'd say, "How did you do? What grade you get?" And I'd tell her my grade, and she'd go, "Well, you have always tested smarter than you really are." Um, right?
All right, mom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Part of that was that she knew I hadn't studied a lot, right? I mean, I had plenty of, I mean, if there was an extracurricular activity, I was engaged and involved in it when I was in school. Everything from athletics to ag to speech and drama and you name it, I was doing it. And so, I mean, I can't tell you the number of days I'd bring my books home, I'd set them on the counter, I'd pick them up off the counter the next morning and go back to school, right? I never opened them.
Right.
And so I probably did test smarter than I should have for sure. But no, so I think, you know, that is a gift. I mean, I'm blessed in that space. And I think, that would I love to be the class clown or be, the energetic, guy out front leading? There were times, right, where I'd go, man, I wish I could. But I truly did make a living doing all the things that nobody else wanted to do.
Mm,
The grunt work, the process, the structure, how do we make sure that we get things done the way we're supposed to do them, right?
right.
And I for about 10 years I ran a service center for HEB where we processed 80,000 paychecks a week. Um, we had 120,000 people on benefits. You couldn't make mistakes.
Mm,
And so you had to have good process. You had to, be tight on those things.
yeah.
And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's a space that I feel very comfortable in.
Yeah.
And that's a space that, again, back to entrepreneurs that want to run a business, that may not be things that they're great at.
Yeah.
And they just need a little help. And so, I have forever been a kind of a collector and curator of, frameworks and systems and process.
Yeah.
I combine the ones that I like. And I read books all the time. And I've kind of gotten into a kind of more of a rhythm of going, now this concept is based loosely on this book. You could go read the book and you may not see any of these words in there, right? But
Mm,
when I read that book, this is I mean, this is the structure of the framework that I created.
well, yeah.
Because I had too many people tell me, Rory, that's not in that book, right? I mean, well, for me it was, right?
Read between the
So
lines.
yeah, that's what
No.
I got out of it. So
Yeah, I think it's amazing to think about the scripture, that Jesus, I think, I think it might be Paul that talks about the different parts of the body and showing greater honor to the ones that are not as visible, right? And so think about in a church kind of situation. The pastor gets up and all the attention's on him, or maybe the worship person, the music leader. They have this cool gift of being able to communicate or sing or play music. And it's kind of the flashy, could be, right?
Yeah,
And that's what everyone notices. But it's not for people like Rory here in the background that actually making sure the bills get paid.
right.
That's very valuable, right? Whether it's an organization, ministry, or elsewise. So, yeah, it really kind of hits home with understanding like God's created us all to work together, every joint supplying. And so it's
That's
not
right.
just like that scripture talks about, the ones that are maybe less visible, that are kind of in the behind the scenes, they actually are going to get greater honor because, it's one or the other. You're going to get up front and get all the applause, or, or you're
Yeah.
going to be behind the scenes helping everything really move forward. And so, yeah, that's super valuable. I'm glad that you have taken the reins and done what you've done with the gift God gave you.
Yeah. No, those are great and affirming words, right? That you can go read for yourself. I think it's First Corinthians 12. But the parts of the body, parts of the body of Christ. I mean, we've got those places that we can hang out and make the biggest impact. I talk about teams. That the best teams aren't made up of people that just say, "Hey, coach, put me wherever you want me." Um, they're made up of people that say, if you want my best, right, you need to put me a wide receiver. If you need me to play left tackle today because somebody's hurt, then I can play left tackle, but the best place for me, the most impact I can have for the team, the most positive thing I can do for the team is this position.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think when we understand what our role should be, right, and can be to make the biggest impact, that's when teams start to make huge strides.
Mhm.
When when we know our role, we know our lane, and how we can complement each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard it said, I'm sure you have too, that a lot of times people fixate on the weakness. I'm like, oh, I need to get better in this area. And not to say that you should never improve in an area that you're not great at, but uh, really where you want to get the maximum amount is where your gifted is. Because if you
Right,
can maximize that, that's where you say you're going to be the one catching those touchdowns because you're in the receiver spot that you need to be in.
right, yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Marcus Buckingham, but one of the things that he shared early on when he was writing the book, I think it was "Go Put Your Strengths to Work." It could have been "Now Discover Your Strengths," but then his third book was "Go Put Your Strengths to Work." But he talked about, every year his performance appraisal, they said, "Marcus, you're really bad at conflict management," right? I mean, and so we need to send you off to a seminar, to a workshop, training to get better at conflict management. And so they invested money, tens of thousands of dollars, year after year, on conflict management for him. And he said he went from being, terrible to really, really bad, right? I mean, so he did make improvement. But he said if we would have spent those thousands of dollars on my strengths, it could have made a huge impact in the organization. And so
Mhm.
if you are terrible at something, right? I mean, I would say you need to focus on that weakness to get to being really, really bad, right? But then refocus and focus on your strengths because that's where the important pieces are.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah,
Yes, as we're having this conversation, you think about, being process oriented or analytical and how you see things. And sometimes in the church world, like I said before, like it's like this is spiritual, so it's this whole woo-woo thing or whatever. Like, let's just be led by the Spirit, that's 100% true, right? Because the Holy Spirit is here to give us direction. But that doesn't mean that it's just like willy-nilly all over the board. Often you hear people talk about God's into numbers. They wouldn't written a whole book about it, right?
you're right.
And
Yeah,
and you think about the how nature and creation works, it is precise.
and
It is
structure.
not,
Absolutely.
there is a ton of, yeah, like I said, structure and design throughout it. And so to have people that can come alongside and model that same thing in a business is, once again, it's very valuable. And it's something that people need to check into and not just think about like, oh yeah, I am. The thing is, right? You can be good at the creative part, like that's kind of more where I live, right? Or some other part of it. But then you get to a spot, you need to come alongside Rory and or folks that have other gifts and talents because you're only going to get to that level where where your gift can take you is limited. But when you come
Right.
together, right, you can have an amplified effect on your efforts.
Yeah, I think you can absolutely have too much structure and too much discipline. I'll always go back to 3M, the manufacturing company that for years was the most creative, most innovative, uh, everything from whiteout to post-it notes to Scotch tape, right? I mean, they were innovating and creating all the time. And they brought in Six Sigma as a discipline, and Six Sigma is all about eliminating variation, right? So there is a structure, there's a process, you follow it every time. And they almost killed the company, killed innovation because they were trying to be too structured, right? So there's a balance there somewhere. And I think it's probably different for different seasons of time, right? I mean, there's times when you have to go overboard on creativity and innovation and, pushing the envelope because you need that for growth.
Mm,
But then you're always going to need to go back into eliminating risk and getting into stable structures so that you can produce consistent results. So there's an ebb and flow of that, and I've got structures and frameworks around that, but I've got a strategy chessboard that kind of walks through. At any given time, I should be playing really kind of in four different zones of stability, risk elimination, making enhancements to existing products, but then also that pure growth, right? Where
mm.
are we on just whether that's geographic growth or new products or new services, but I need to do all four of those um, in a pretty consistent way if I want to be a going concern 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now.
Yeah. One of the things I think about is the misconception that um, there is just like a creative type of person, like, oh, that person's creative. They write songs or paint paintings and things like that. We've all been given creativity, it's just how it outworks in our life is different. So
Right.
creativity and discipline and structures, right? Like we're still tapping into the creator and his ability to give us those insights. And
Yeah, because he
yeah,
did both,
right,
right?
exactly.
Right. I mean, yeah, he
Yeah.
created your DNA, which is very, very structured, but he also created, clouds, the sky, little yellow flowers, right? I mean, all those things.
Yeah.
Utah,
Variations are endless, it
right?
seems to be. Yeah. So the Anchor Points Journal, we've already touched on it. So
Yeah,
we're talking about discipline and that sort of thing. And so this is one of those tools that can help with that. And so
right.
I think you might have a copy there behind you. Do you have one that you can show
Actually,
or
I've
right
got
there?
one with writing in it, but I've got
Oh
one
yeah, there you
here.
go.
Yeah,
Anchor Point. So that's you were kind enough to send me a copy. Thank you so much for
you
uh,
bet.
giving me one of those. What a
Yeah,
blessing. And so, like you already said, there's a piece in there that's really about prayer and honoring God. And so, kind of tell
yeah,
us about how. Obviously, we know based on who you are and what kind of things you do, this became a creative thing that you put out there. But what was kind of the genesis of getting that together?
yeah. So it has become a little bit of a passion project for me. And I think I may have shared with this with you when we talked before, but I mean, I created single sheets of paper that worked great for me that had the items that pretty much are here. And as I started working with clients, and I would say, I've got a tool, right? I got a simple print out this sheet of paper and kind of walk through this on a daily basis. Could be helpful for you. And I kept getting the feedback from my clients that was like, I love this, but I sure would prefer it if it were in a book, right? If it were bound and available for me, with all the structure that was there. And so I started working kind of through that, kind of resistant to creating a product, creating a book, doing that kind of thing. And then I also had some clients that said, I don't mind journaling, but I like bullet journals as opposed to, something structured and with lines and all that kind of piece in it. The more I worked with them on the bullet journal, we ended up with a bullet journal that was way less bullet journal and way more structured because they kept going, I need this framework. I need these pieces that are in there. So somewhere along the line, I just kind of abandoned the bullet journal version of this and said, this is what you get. So about a year ago now, I guess I created kind of version one of the Anchor Points Journal, which is really, culmination of all the work that I've done, and kind of date myself on what the tool set was at the time, whether that was, a day timer or a day runner or a Franklin journal before it was Franklin Covey, right? I mean, all those kind of along the way. But structure, time management, discipline is really self management. There is no such thing as time management. Time happens regardless of whether I'm playing or not. But how do I manage myself in time? And so the left hand side truly is that kind of faith based side. And then the right side is more around best techniques, tools that I've found over time using any and all those products, right? So,
Okay.
how do I focus myself on a daily basis um, to be the best and most I can get done productivity wise as I can?
Yeah.
With an important piece for me, and I think on the daily side, again, I'll go back to sports. We would be very disappointed if we found out our sports teams never watched game film, right? Never watched the film the day after and said, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? How can we get
Right.
better? But how many times in a given week do you end the day, shut the laptop, and walk out the door without ever reflecting on the day, right? And
Mhm.
saying, what did I learn today? You know, where did I make an impact? How can I be better tomorrow?
Mhm.
Um, Spending just 5 minutes in reflection on how can I be a little bit better? Because I can have a 20-year career that's really just the same one year 20 times over if I don't spend any time reflecting and thinking about how I could get better. And
Yeah.
so that's a critical piece for me is that daily review and reflection at the end of the day, where whether that's the 10 minutes before you leave the office or 10 minutes before you put your head on the pillow, I need to spend a little bit of time reflecting on how the day went.
Yeah.
So I am still kind of in process, in progress. My printer, I told him about 6 months ago, this is the version that we're going to run with. We're not changing it. We're not going forward. I called him about 2 weeks later and said, I'm getting feedback that I need to make some changes. And so we're on three versions past that now, just kind of tweaking it a little bit, playing with it.
Right.
But still making improvements. But I love it. I use it every day. And I've got clients that will tell you that just like me, they know the days they use it and they know the days they don't.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
they can, I've got a client that told me I can tell those weeks, right? I don't even have to go back and look if I used the journal or not. I can just say that week I wasn't as disciplined at using
Mhm.
it um, as I was 2 weeks ago because last week was a disaster, right? Um,
Mhm.
so it makes an impact on, I mean, I've got clients that say that's not for me, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was. Have you seen a pattern in the type of people that you coach that kind of latch on to it, or is it role based, or is it just kind of like personality styles that
I
seem
think
to?
it's probably more seasonal life and kind of what's going on in their life
Mm, yeah.
than it is kind of personality types. And definitely, I'm trying to think. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with, are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yeah,
Okay.
my wife knows way more than I do.
Yeah.
She,
So if I think about it from that structure, you know, Enneagram type, ones and threes are way more drawn to something like this than say a seven is, right? So somebody that's a high achiever or somebody that's some people call it perfectionist, some people call it improver, right? They're going to be way more drawn to this than others. Somebody that's the life of the party out there out front, always chasing the next new shiny bauble. Probably, I mean, this structure is probably a little much, but
No.
I still think the faith-based side of it is
Yeah.
a grounding that even if it might not be attractive to them, may be the best thing for them.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
so,
So on that, you mentioned Enneagram.
yeah,
You probably know more about it than I do. Like I said, my wife's the one that could tell people what they are. I don't even know what I am. Usually on the reality is when I take these kind of tests, I usually show up in multiple different areas. Like there's
right.
not, I'm not that woo in one
Yeah.
area or not. So it always is a little bit strange for me. But what are you, and is that something that you use when you coach people to kind of understand how you communicate?
So I use it probably more. I do, and have done, like marriage retreats, kind of faith-based retreats, that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
it can be a cornerstone and kind of a key component in that space. Uh, I do have some business clients where, we've struggled a little bit with personalities and kind of getting things done. And so I've recommended, hey, let's just take the Enneagram and then we can go through that and talk about
Yeah.
what that can mean for you, but also how can you improve.
Yeah.
That would be, I mean, I love assessments. I use DISC a lot. I
Right.
use Working Genius from Patrick Lencioni. Um, I've got a few others that I might pull out. I use Standout from Marcus Buckingham. But I think the Enneagram, what makes it different is that it's not just what type are you, but then, kind of what are your virtues? What are your, what's the where is a problem area for you? How can you improve? It's all there if you dive into it deep enough. So I am a if you're an Enneagram person, I'm a type one, which is that perfectionist or an improver, um, which could be, in some instances, it's not just um, there is a right way, but there's an only way, and it's my way, right? But hopefully I tamped that down enough. I just like having a way to get it done, and then we can improve on it from there. I just want a starting spot that I can be consistent.
Yeah. From your experience of, understanding like Enneagrams and strengths finders and using some of these like disc profiles to help, when you come alongside folks and coach and, just lead in general. Have you gotten to a place where you can interact with someone to a certain degree and kind of understand who they are fairly quickly?
Yeah, and they always caution you, right, to not classify somebody, let them classify themselves, especially on the Enneagram side.
Mm,
But you can definitely see character traits, right? And so, are you, so if I go back to Myers-Briggs, am I, introverted or extroverted, right? Am I kind of quiet and reserved and taken back, or I'm a little more loud and boisterous and talk with my hands and interact, right? I mean, you can see that, and then you can. I think the goal in any of these is not to understand who they are
mm,
necessarily. It's really more on understanding how I should communicate with them, right?
sure.
I mean, out of every conversation, I would love for you, Mark, to go, hey, Rory's just like me, right? I mean, he communicates just like I do. He understood where I was coming from. He used language that I used, right? I mean,
Mm,
before we started taping it, right, it's like accents, right? And
yeah.
so mine shows up sometimes more often and stronger than I would like it to. But if I if I temper kind of how I speak, or I understand that you are, if I went to disc for just a second, and you're a high D, so you that dominant direct, you're a bullet person. I want an executive summary of the executive summary. That's a way. I mean, knowing that and understanding that, I can. completely changed the way I talk with you. As opposed to giving you a 40-page report, I know you want 4 bullet points with a recommendation on which one of those four you should do first. Right? I
Mm,
mean, that's a way more impactful way to use the the profiling tools, the personality tools, than just going, yeah, Mark's a D, so he's direct, he's dominant, he can be a little bit gruff. Right? I mean, that doesn't do me any good. It's how do I
mm.
use that to communicate with you in a different way?
Yeah, that's great wisdom. It makes me think of a scripture that talks about, um, think of others more highly than yourselves, right? Like essentially you're giving them the attention. And so you are, quote unquote, maybe catering on some level
Yeah,
because you want to connect with them and help them in some way, or, just make them
yeah,
feel seen or heard or those kind of things.
yeah. I don't. I mean, it's not being manipulative, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not to manipulate you. It's to stay in conversation and connection longer, right? I mean, which
Mm,
is what you want, right? I mean,
yeah.
and so if I can do that in the best and most possible beneficial way, right,
Yeah.
along the way. Um,
Yeah. Paul says, I'm all things to all people. So that
Absolutely.
same
Ah,
idea, right? Like, it's just being able to, if you want to get real spiritual about it, and which is the core of who we are, is, you're allowing Jesus's love to connect with them because Jesus was the perfect representation of all of it. I've heard that as one of the ways that you can look
yeah,
at different gifts, the fact that he was the lion and the lamb and the eagle. Like there's so many pictures of who the Lord is,
right.
and they're
Yeah,
different models of how we could be our personalities, right?
yeah. Yeah. His personality showed up the way it needed to for the situation that he was in, right?
Exactly.
Whether that was compassionate, caring, the woman that had been bleeding for 12 years saying, "Who touched the hem of my garment?" Right? I mean, who touched me?
Mm,
And then spending time to hear her whole story, right? I mean, um, or turning over the tables of the money changers, right? I mean, his personality showed up completely different on a given day.
yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the things that I teach for leaders and managers is, bad managers, I don't know what to expect from you from one day to the next, right? I mean, you can be Jekyll and Hyde. Good managers, you're super predictable, super consistent. You're a micromanager, but you micromanage everything every day, right? I mean, at least I know what to expect from you.
Mhm.
But the best managers, the best leaders, they take the task that I'm assigning, the person's skill set that I'm assigning it to, and then I take those two and put them together and then say, what you need from me is this. This is the style that you need from me today is this. So I need to micromanage you because you've never done it before. Or I need to stand on the sidelines and coach you, right? I'm not giving you feedback during the middle of the play, but when the play's over, I can give you feedback.
Yeah.
Or I just cut you loose and say, go do that. And if you need any help, reach out, right? I'm always a phone call away, right?
Yeah.
But I should match my leadership style, my management style with your skills and abilities and the tasks that I'm assigning it to you.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
good wisdom right there, Rory. And I want to let people know where they can find you as we kind of start to wrap our time up together.
You bet.
Where can people get your information, get connected to you?
Most active on LinkedIn. So I'm Rory Sheppard. I'm not sure I'm the only one. I know I'm not the only one out there, but pretty close to the only Rory Sheppard on LinkedIn. Um, my website is westtexas.actioncoach.com. But those are the two places. Website has got a lot of information on anything from nonprofit kind of coaching and counseling to executive coaching, pure business coaching, those kind of things, or LinkedIn. Those are the two places that I'm the most active anyway.
Great. We'll have that in the description of the video here, so you'll be able to click those folks
Yeah.
and get connected with Rory. While I'm looking at your name, I was thinking of Roaring Shepherd, which is a kind of a cool little thing to think about. Jesus is the lion and the lamb. It's right there in your name.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
sure that was intentional by my parents, but
right, yeah. I mean, if you want to use that for any of
yeah, I
your
will from
your
now
marketing.
on. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I always like to give our guests the final word of encouragement to our audience. So, Roy, lay it on them.
I think one of the things that I know business owners, right? I mean, entrepreneurs, they had very high aspirations, hopes, and dreams when they started the business. And not all of them, but a large majority of them, 3 years, 5 years in, are really kind of just working a job and aren't still passionate about kind of that what their hopes and dreams were. And I would just say that you know those are still possible. And my encouragement for you would be me or somebody else that can come alongside you and rekindle some of those hopes and dreams and go, well, let's see if that's possible, right? What do we have to do? And it's not the to be Fulbright, I've got to do these 500 things. It's what's the next thing that I need to do, right? Just the next one thing I need to do to get me closer to that hope and dream. Because God didn't put you here to be miserable. He didn't put you here to go through the motions. He gave you gifts and talents that you should be using and can be using to achieve those things that you want to achieve. Um, so that would be my final word.
Wow. Thanks, Rory. Really appreciate you being with us, sharing your story, your wisdom, and your encouragement, all of it. It's been great. And yes, folks, be sure to connect once again with what he's doing. And thanks so much, Rory.
You bet. Thank you, Mark.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being a part of the 2000 Cubit Rule. And until next time.